Hi, I'm R.A. Salvatore, Bob Salvatore. Been writing fantasy books for 25 years now and going strong, and you're listening to GenreTainment.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of GenreTainment at sci-fi-pulse-radio.com. We're your hosts Marx
and Julie. GenreTainment is where we talk about what's happening in the world of film, TV, books, and web series. We give you interviews with writers, directors, producers, and actors in both independent and not-so-independent creations. This is episode 114, and we are chatting with writer and game designer Sean Patrick Fannon.
Fannon has been writing for tabletop role-playing games since 1988, working on such classic games as the first Star Wars RPG from West End Games, the superhero RPG Champions, and much more. He's also the author of one of my favorite books, the Fantasy Role-Playing Gamer's Bible. He's also worked for years with computer games too, but the main topic we have him to discuss is the upcoming role-playing game Savage Rifts, taking a classic Rifts game and transforming it with the popular Savage Worlds rules system. Rifts was originally released in 1990, a sort of anything and everything goes setting, featuring over-the-top action, superpowered heroes, and exceptionally rich setting and story content. This post-apocalyptic Earth setting, where magic is returned to the world, it's a classic setting, a very fun setting, and people are very excited about this new rule system, Savage Worlds. It's a very popular multi-genre rule system. So very excited to see how this game turns out.
Now, we recorded the interview a couple of weeks ago, and since then a Kickstarter was announced. It should be starting right around the time this episode goes live, so we'll make sure to put a link to the Kickstarter as soon as we have it. Fannon tells us about the highly anticipated game, and we also talk about why I sometimes have a hard time getting excited about role-playing games anymore. But it sounds like this game may help change that. But before we get started with the interview, we should point out that the music you just heard at the beginning of the show was a snippet from the theme song for our web series, Reality on Demand. It was a song composed and performed by our friend T. Sean Hardy. And you can find our web series at realityondemandseries.com. Now let's get started with our interview with Sean Patrick Fannon. Hi, Sean. Welcome to the show.
I'm happy to be here. How are you guys doing?
We're doing good. Thanks. Well, we're looking forward to talking to you about the upcoming Savage Rifts game. I'm very excited about it. Which is offering the popular Rifts RPG with a different gaming system. But before we get too involved in that, we do want to talk to you about your long history of RPG writing, dating back to '88. But before we talk about that, actually, just to give you a warning, we got two sides of our audiences here. I'm a guy who's played role-playing games since I was like in junior high. And Julie, I introduced Julie to role-playing games, but she has only played a few games up to this point, like Pathfinder, Mutants and Masterminds.
I liked those. Well, I mean, I played Star Wars 20, and we did Men in Black before, and D&D. And
So the question, of course, then becomes, Julie, from a guy who worked on stuff for the first Star Wars role-playing game and started playing Dungeons and Dragons in 1977 and started working professionally in 1988. So this is obviously my life. Do you enjoy role-playing games?
I like playing role-playing games with the right group of people.
The alchemy of role-playing. That is an incredibly important thing. There's all we can do when we write the rules and write all the guidelines and all these amazing things that we spend all our time writing, but what we cannot package in a role-playing game book or box set or whatever, or somehow embed into the digital PDFs, we cannot embed the elusive aspects of what it takes to get the right group together.
Well, and it's the group, and then also I like rule systems that are very story-oriented and character-oriented. I don't like sitting around a table and having people like, oh, well, the rule is this and da-da-da-da, and then like the math, and it's all about the numbers and the math, and you ask them about their character, and they're like, well, it's a something level, whatever, and da-da-da-da-da. And, like, I like to be able to create like a really cool character that I get really attached to this character, and I think it's really cool, and I like the adventures. And when you're when you're dealing with rules and people who care more about the numbers and don't care about the characters, I literally will fall asleep and Marx just nudges me and goes, "Your turn, roll." And
I completely understand.
and then
the struggle continues. Trust me. Bless your heart, because I'm absolutely with you 100%. I write rules for a living. I write and design rules for a living, and yet to me, the rules are meant to be the language by which we express the game part of the role-playing game experience. The language by which we all understand how to accomplish things and to do things in the world. But the reason for accomplishing and doing things in the world is to tell a story.
Right.
So the trick, of course, is to find the mix, right?
Mhm.
Because when you have a bunch of people who don't care at all about the rules, it can also be frustrating for the person
Yeah.
who worked on a cool character and likes what they designed from a mechanics perspective. And if nobody's paying any attention to that, that can also be frustrating. So
Mhm.
both of those sides have valid points.
Yeah.
But when the weight is extreme to one side or the other, I completely understand where you're coming from
Yeah.
there. I'd love to get you to table I'm running sometime.
No, but and it had been a lot of years. We did more role playing years ago, and then there had been some years where I didn't do any. And then we did it again, and I'm also shocked at just how it seems weird. It seems like in the 10 years ago, there wasn't as much sexist crap as there is now. Mark is like,
Oh,
oh,
we're going there.
we are.
Here's-
All of a
here's-
sudden, like this, I used to role play and it wasn't a big deal, and now all of a sudden, guys are going, "Oh my God, you're so raped! Oh, I totally raped you," and saying stuff like that, and I'm
Okay,
like,
so here's the thing.
"What the hell?"
You're dealing with the wrong people. Okay, first off, don't game with those people ever again. That's my first thing. That is not typical of our hobby at all. In fact, is the vast majority of our culture is absolutely against that kind of thing. There's a lot of intangibles here and a lot of things going on. Role playing is bigger than it's ever been.
Yeah.
I know everybody talks about the boom of the '80s, but we did not have anywhere near the number of players we had then that we do now. If you look at John Wick 7th Sea, $1.3 million Kickstarter. So we're bigger. There's many more games. There's many more people playing. A lot of the old groups are coming back. We do have, unfortunately, because of such an expansion to our culture and expansion to our population, that means we're getting in
You
all
get the
kinds.
riffraff along with the quality.
and there is a little bit of a
Well,
culture.
but some of this though is from people who had been gaming all
Well,
along.
but I think
But it's a video game thing.
there's a video game.
Yes. The
That's
Make Me
what
a
Marx was
Sandwich.
telling me, because I don't video game. I never have. I care
The
more.
Gamergate culture, unfortunately, is pushing back hard. A lot of them are feeling like, hey, these hobbies are supposed to be, for us to blah blah blah. It's clueless and ridiculous. But just please understand, that's not how most of us think. That's not how most of us play.
Well, I set a lot of men straight. I had a talk with some of them. I have no qualms about standing up and talking to a room full of guys and telling them exactly what the hell is wrong with all that.
Good on you. I highly recommend, if you get a chance to get to some conventions, to play some table convention games with some folks, so you get a chance to see different alchemies, different social dynamic and chemistries and things like that, because there really is some just great stuff going on. And there's been, in the 21st century, here in the 2000s, we've seen some new developments that really focus heavily on player empowerment and player narrative control, and much more narrative-driven aspects to both character creation and gameplay. So
I like that. That aspect is the best part.
And even with Savage Worlds, which is the game system I do most of my development with, because I'm with Pinnacle, we are moving more and more towards adding narrative elements in, and you'll see systems that are designed to emphasize story play over just mechanic combat play. Mechanic combat play, however, let me be very careful here, because I love lots of combat. I love when I get to play. I like to play action adventure heroes or jumping
Yeah,
off
I like the combat.
But to me, when combat starts up, that's not when you stop role play. That's when you start role playing even harder.
Yeah.
Because every scene, every time you get to go, should be an opportunity to describe an awesome scene, a great moment in action adventure cinema, and every chance it should be. And as a GM, I try to bring that out. If my players are not describing their character's actions cinematically, I will do so for them, and I really draw them in that way, so that they have more of a sense of a narrative and of a cinematic action adventure experience as opposed to just a tactical, I'm rolling some dice and doing some damage experience.
Well, yeah, one fight shouldn't take several hours, though, right?
Well,
I mean, because that's when it starts getting really boring.
Well, now there's elements of game design there. There's elements of GM style and player style and things like that. There's a lot of aspects of it. Some game mechanics, some game systems do lend themselves to faster resolution than others. Once again, I'm biased, but Savage
I'm far too ADD for something to last that long.
Savage Worlds is a game system. There's a reason why Savage Worlds is so popular these days, in my opinion. There's a lot of different reasons, but one of those reasons is that it was designed by Shane and everybody else on the team originally, and it has continued to evolve to be that game that can express any kind of genre, any kind of experience, and yet the game mechanics, the core of the mechanics, are very fast, very friendly, very, very easy to get through. You can do 2 or 3 combats in a typical 4-hour game session, and you can do it. You can just do it. It handles. And I do big tables with dozens of minions and a lead bad guy and some big monsters and my heroes of 6 to 8 player characters, and I can knock that battle out fast and make it interesting because that is where game design has gone, is towards games that resolve things quickly, partially because of how we've evolved socially. I mean, there's so many of us who are involved, who the game masters especially, we're adults, we have kids, we have jobs, we have lives, and so we can't spend hours upon hours both trying to prepare for the game and then trying to run the game. We think that we'll move a little faster. So it may be that you would be happier playing at a table where they're using a game system that's not as old school, if you will, because there are people for whom that's fun. There's for people for whom that is still the way they want to play, and there's no wrong way to play or no wrong way to have fun. It's a matter of you finding a group that's playing in the style that best suits you.
Yeah, for sure. And she hasn't played Savage Worlds. I've read some of the books, but I haven't actually got a chance to play with a group of people yet. But I like the rules.
Yeah, he can read those books for hours.
I've read a lot of books. But
I recommend Julie, you take a look at a game called Fate. I suspect that one's going to intrigue you.
Yeah, I know of that one. I just bought Mark some books for...
Yeah, for Fate, yeah.
Yeah, what was it for last year for your birthday or something?
Yeah.
It plays very, very differently than the ones that you named before, but I think it'll be intriguing for you. So
then why
haven't
you had me play that one?
We haven't had a chance to. We need
I
to get a group
blame
together.
Marx.
So, well, if you ever end up at a convention where I am, I hit a lot of conventions, obviously, or you ever get out to Denver, let me know. I would love to get you to a table and show you how I run things and see if you'd enjoy it.
Cool. I don't know, if I get out there in Colorado, I might not go inside that easily.
You would definitely want to sit a couple of days to go see the mountains. They're amazing. I ever since we moved here, it's been incredible.
Where'd you move from?
Oh, I've lived all over. See, my career started out doing stuff for role-playing game hobby, and I still continue to do so, but I started doing stuff for the computer game hobby as well. Nothing you've ever heard of, because almost nothing ever came out. For every one project that gets on the shelves, there's 10 that get somewhere along the process and then die, and the company gets folded.
So it's like a script writer.
Yeah.
So I followed that around for a while, and I've lived both Northern and Southern California. I was with the Game Manufacturers Association, GAMA, up in Columbus, Ohio for a while, so I know the Midwest pretty well. Lived most of throughout the South, but I was born in Tennessee and raised in Georgia, so I'm originally from the South.
Oh, I love Tennessee.
Well, yeah, I mean, the governments of the South tend to aggravate me considerably, but the countryside is still amazing.
Countryside's beautiful. The people are very friendly.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I mean, but Corinne, my belovedest and partner in Evil Beagle Games, and I, because we joke about that we escaped from Alabama. So that was where we live. We're living last is Huntsville, Alabama. When I came to be a guest here at Genghis Khan, which is an amazing game convention, by the way. If you want to come to one of the best, just sit down and play games all day, every day for a couple of days, 3 days. Genghis Khan cannot be beat, and it's got an amazing, amazing number of games and amazing things going on. So I came as a guest of honor for Genghis Khan a couple of years ago, and just fell in love with Denver. And next thing I knew, I was like, hey, maybe it'd be cool. And then there was a GoFundMe, and we suddenly were like, okay, let's do it. So here we are.
Great.
That's great.
So talking about rules, one of the big things here with Savage Rifts is that we're taking the Rifts game, which has been around for quite a few years.
1990.
And love the art, love the world, the creation of it. the one complaint that some people have with it has been some people don't always like the rules or don't think the rules have updated over time.
So there's this ongoing joke between me and Kevin Simbita, and it goes way back to that first edition, that book that we talked about before that we got on air, the Fantasy Role-Playing Gamer's Bible. When I wrote it in 1995 and had a chance to meet everybody and talk about games and stuff, I did this sort of fun little, goofy awards kind of thing, and I listed as the most fun game that nobody plays was Palladium's Rifts, and I said, of course, within the text of that thing, I said that's not actually true. He has tons of fans, but there was such a huge body of people for whom it was a great setting, but they were always looking for the game system to play it with because they did not appreciate the particular style of old school hit point grind, classic, like an very evolved. I mean, people talk about D20 as evolution as a game system. It can be fairly said that Palladium Books as a company evolved D20 before anybody was in some significant directions in terms of the way they approach things like alignments and where they approach things like character classes and they just did so much and pointed some very interesting and innovative ideas towards a classic game engine being moved in a new direction. And that works for a lot of people. It still does. 2016, people still playing Rifts by its original rules, and we absolutely were like, go you. But yeah, there are other people for whom Rifts was not as accessible. It wasn't the style of game that they wanted to play. The fact that the Rifts players were not, and the Rift designers were not as concerned with this type of approach to game balance that some people preferred. And again, there's no wrong way to play and there's no wrong way to have fun, but for a lot of people, that wasn't going to be fun for them. So they were intrigued, but they were, out in the cold in terms of this is not the game I want to play. It's the world I want to play in. And now, here we are. It's 2016, so we're talking 26 years since it was published. Kevin and I have been friends this entire time, and I asked him respectfully, and he said, that sounds like a great idea, let's do it. And here we are bringing that gonzo over-the-top, post-apocalyptic, everything plus superheroes and a weaponized kitchen sink setting to a completely different game system, in this case Savage Rifts. So using the Savage rules, and that's where we are.
So basically, I mean, you have to just kind of come to terms with the fact that when you're talking about balancing of rules, you just are not going to please everybody all the time, are you? I mean, there's just no way to find the perfect for everyone.
No, and I think that's why this is really beneficial, because I think like you've never played Rifts. I haven't played Rifts for a long time. But I suspect you wouldn't like Rifts.
Me?
Yeah, just because of the rules and balances. Sometimes if you get it with the wrong group of people, they're going to min-max it and make it crazy.
Yeah.
And
now, Julie, the original Rift system would be one of the worst possible game systems you can play. The conversation that we've had, and that's flat out.
Based
and again,
knowing what you know about me, that would be a bad match.
Yeah, well, and it's a bad match for a lot of people. The same as the fact that Fate is a bad match for a lot of people because they would prefer a much crunchier, more tactical game. I mean, again, it just comes down to that we are such a broad cross section of people now. There's games I should not sit down at the table and play, and I know other people love those games. I do not personally enjoy playing GURPS. I have had nothing but terrible experiences playing Rolemaster, which I used to call Roll You Bastard, if you'll forgive the phrase. But, that's, and I know I have friends for whom that's their system of choice. So, but yeah, just based on what we talked about, the original Rift system would not work for you, but I think Savage Rifts would be a lot of fun for you.
Yeah. Well, I plan on getting it when it comes out, and we'll play it. We'll get some people together.
It's been the most challenging game design project I've ever been involved in. It's the most challenging work I've ever done in this industry. It's been a satisfying challenge. I'm very proud of what we've accomplished. But it has just been, wow.
I imagine. Because I tried at one point when D20 was so hot, trying to convert some stuff over D20 for my gaming group. And I was trying to read various books and be like, okay, well, how can I balance this and kind of mimic this feel? And I was like, wow, this is really going to be complicated. And I gave up.
I'm wondering how to combine role-playing game and making it a drinking game. I think that would certainly up the fun.
There needs to be
Julie.
The fun aspect, I think, could really be
Role playing and drinking does not work at all. It really doesn't. You can definitely do some fun role play storytelling kind of stuff, while getting hammered. But the typical role playing game is not going to work, because at some point there's going to be the guy at the table who all the filthy stuff's going to start flowing out of their mouth, saying all the horrible things you were already upset about hearing people say when they're sober. You're going to find out your friends who are willing to say that when they're drunk. Absolutely no one's going to care about the story. I mean, all those things just completely go out the window. I mean, there are some fun games that can be played in the geek milieu, while drinking, certainly. And there are a couple of games that could work. Like Paranoia could work drunk. There's Tune could work drunk, and often does. There's a few others, like my friend Lee Garvin and his Tales from the Floating Vagabond. You almost would assume you have to be drunk to play that game. There's that. But typically, and it never is going to go past a camp. It's never going to be a campaign. It could work as a one shot. Fiasco. Fiasco is another one that you could probably play drunk. In fact, you might be better off playing that one drunk. I'll amend my original. It doesn't work with. It could work under certain circumstances, most of which I would be terrified of.
There's not a lot of information about Savage Rifts yet. Is there a release date yet, or an idea when it's going to be released?
Oh, Mark.
I know.
Everyone's.
You put him on the spot.
Everyone's asking that question, and the simple truth is I cannot say. I can assure you it's this year. I can assure you that we are seriously ramping up, and there's a lot of awesome things happening in the background. Matter of fact, right up to when you guys called, I was working on stuff. And it's going to be very, very exciting. And just keep your eyes peeled, because, there's a plan. It is engaged, and that's all I can say. But a lot of work has gone into this from a lot of people, because this is huge. We were very, very blessed to be named the number one most anticipated game of 2016 on EN World. So we know we got a lot ahead of us on this, and Pinnacle never does anything by half measures anyway. And this one in particular is incredibly important to us, to Palladium, and to a lot of people. So nothing gets done unless it's done right. But we're cooking. We're in the kitchen cooking. Stuff starting to come to boil. It's looking good.
Well, you have to keep us updated and let us know.
Well, for sure. So what can we roughly expect in this first book? Like, is this going to be like the character classes in the main original core book? Is it going to have like a lot of those character classes, those races? Is it
so right now the plan includes 3 core books, which is the Savage Rifts Player's Guide, the Savage Rifts GM's Guide. When I say the Savage Rifts Player's Guide, I should say that right now we're actually looking at calling it the Tomorrow Legion Player's Guide, because that is the actual cool little adventuring paradigm thing that we're presenting as sort of our special spin on the world. We've created what we like to call an adventuring paradigm. Kevin is just absolutely thrilled about this. He thinks it's really cool. It's a reason to get a bunch of obscure and interesting characters together as part of a larger group that goes out and is trying to actually make a better world. We're calling it the Tomorrow Legion. That's a new thing that is coming out with this. So there's Player's Guide, the GM's Guide, and then the Savage Foes of North America, which is our it's going to be a book that has a lot of cool bad guys and monsters and classic stuff for you to mostly contend with in your adventures in the North American part of the Rift's Earth. And that's where we're starting is with that. Now the Player's Guide is going to tell you how to make characters in the classic vein. I mean, the translation, and that's the right word for this, is not a direct conversion, right? So it's a translation of Rift's ideas to Savage Worlds gameplay. But you're going to be able to play a Glitter Boy. You're going to be able to play a Combat Cyborg, a Juicer, a Crazy, a Leyline Walker, a Mind Melter, a Burster. All of those very classic, iconic ones that you see in the core book of the original Rifts releases, as well as being able to play like an Operator or a Rogue Scholar or a City Rat, or those kinds of characters. And yes, we found a way to balance them. We found a way to make those characters kind of be able to step up and be in the they have equal levels of ability to survive in combat and equal levels of ability to contribute. In fact, in some ways they have some superior ways to contribute, because they're going to have skill sets that your glitter boy, who pretty much is, I got a big gun, baby, and then your wilderness scout's like, yeah, but I know how to actually get us through these wilderness, and do these other things that you don't really have a clue about. So a lot of that's going to be. I'm really thrilled with what we've come up with. The team, we've come together on this, and we beat this thing to death, and back and forth, and what the results are, I'm pretty excited about. And the players who have had a chance to play at the various convention demo games that I've run have almost universally been thrilled. I've been extremely pleased with the responses from other people who've had a chance to play this, and this includes Rifts fans, old school, old guard Rifts fans. Many of them are coming to Savage Worlds for the first time, but they've come, they've sat down, they've played, and they're like, yes, this feels like Rifts. This is exciting. This is awesome. So that's been very, very satisfying.
That's great. I'm excited. I didn't even know you were going to have 3 core books. I'm even more excited. And
good. I have more birthday and Christmas present ideas.
This is a line. This is planned to be a line. So there's going to be a number of. I mean, this is something that Kevin wants to see us go forward with this, and we're pretty excited about it. We feel that the fans are behind that, so we want to see how far we can go with this.
That's good. I'm excited about that. And also, when you say line, is it going to be all supplement setting books and such, or are you going to do any kind of adventure modules or something? Because that's something that's been a little lacking in Rifts versus like what you see in Pathfinder now.
Well, first off, there's an adventure generator in the GM's guide, so right there you've got a nice tool for that. But there will be adventures. Yes, that is something that we've come to understand people want again. There was a long period of time in the games industry where adventures we weren't able to figure out how to really make those sell to be worth the time and effort and energy put into producing them. But now that seems to be the case. That adventures are a popular thing to do now, and of course with digital publication they're easier to do, because back when we were print or nothing, printing an adventure was not as worthwhile an investment. But doing it PDF, we do adventures all day long, and people are happy to get them. And yes, believe me, you're not the first Rifts player or person who's played Rifts in the past or a Rifts fan that goes, hey, adventures, yeah. So we're listening, we're paying attention to that. We actually I'm working with some really awesome people on some adventure stuff. I'm very honored to be the brand manager, and it's an interesting role for me, because not only is it writing and design, but I'm also looking over the process, and I've been working very closely with Ross Watson, who's famous, from people who know the Warhammer 40K stuff out of Fantasy Flight Games. Ross ran that shop for a while and is considered a Warhammer 40K expert, but he's also very much an expert in the Rifts setting. He knows way more about the details of the Rift setting than I do, so he's been invaluable. He's my partner in Evil Beagle Games and has been my partner on this project. And he's doing a couple of actually, no, it looks like I think 3 adventures right off the bat, including the GM Screen adventure, and a couple of others he's working on right now. And then we've got some other really awesome people lined up who want to do adventures. So yeah, that's definitely part of the picture.
Yeah, I mean that's something I have seen evolve over time, because I think it's because Pathfinder adventure modules, adventure paths and stuff just have made that much more popular. Seems like it, and the whole society element, or that's not the right word, living campaign type thing, I think has helped that grow.
Oh, absolutely.
And one thing I always thought the Rifts could have used too was a little bit more guidance on where you could take your characters. Sometimes not as strong as like Shadowrun, where you're like early Shadowrunners, but sometimes there's so many great ideas, so many enemies, you don't know where to go as a GM. And I think that's cool that you're doing this tomorrow. Did you say Tomorrow League?
The Tomorrow Legion.
Yeah. And how much can you tell us about the Tomorrow Legion?
It's been out there for a little bit. The Tomorrow Legion is everything's set in the aftermath of the fall of Tolkien. It's about 6 to 8 months, I think, after Tolkien has collapsed, which is a major magic kingdom in the Rift setting, and it was a 6-book series plus a book called Aftermath that sort of followed after that, and it was very, very defining event in the Rift setting. So we're sitting just after that, when the collapse of Tolkien and the Coalition's effort to consolidate their power, and the growth of Lord Dunskin and his version of the Federation of Magic, and the tensions that are still developing along those lines. And amidst all that, You have Fort El Dorado, which is the latest coalition state in Arkansas. They control the very southern part of Arkansas, although they technically claim all of the state, but most of like the middle and northern part of Arkansas, as well as a huge chunk of Missouri, is still not heavily patrolled or controlled by coalition forces. So within that region, there is exactly on the border, right between Arkansas and Missouri, right there on the border. There's a place, and this is a real place. It's a place called Fort. It's a Lead Hill. I think it's called Lead Hill, Arkansas. Mm-hmm. And it's a real. I mean, this is one thing about playing with Rifts is, of course, you're using all these real locations. And Lead Hill, Arkansas, there is a company that tried to build a resort based on building a castle using original, like slightly post-medieval era techniques and construction materials, and they were going to build an entire resort around this idea. Well, it didn't get finished, and they ran out of money, and I think last I heard they were still trying to find somebody to finance this or pick it up or buy it from them or something. But it's not too far from the Ozarks and Branson, Missouri, and all that kind of stuff. So it's in that region. So anyway, the speculation is we had fun with it that some dwarves came along from a rift at some point and found this foundation and said, let's build a castle. And so they finished the castle and they built a town around it. And then refugees from the Tolkien War got brought there by Lord Coke, who's the guy who founded the Cyberknights. And he and Aaron Tarn worked with these other people. And there's this whole thing where they built it and it became to be called Castle Refuge, and became a place where a lot of people trying to start over again. And the idea is that the Tomorrow Legion evolved out of the garrison of people who were there to protect them and try to help, rebuild. And then they're like, well, it's an opportunity for us to try to build a better world and to look to tomorrow as opposed to keep trying to hold on to the past. So that's what's going on. Is you've got this place that's welcoming heroic-minded people who are looking to do something to, deal with the coalition, to oppose the Federation, to deal with the raiders from Pecos Empire, the impending threat of the Zitikiks, Atlantis. I mean, all these threats that you mentioned, you're right. There's just so many threats and stuff, but this is a group now that is going to be, able to be pointed at these threats, to explore, to examine, to investigate, and to deal with them. And, that's kind of where we're going with this now, is giving the GM and these players a tool by which it's like, okay, here's all these bad guys, all these conspiracies, all these hidden stories, all these things that are happening, these threats, and here's a reason for you guys to be a part of something that is trying to deal with these threats and to investigate and to explore and find new ways to build the world.
It sounds exciting. I think the whole direction sounds really good. I think it's gonna be a hit. I smell a hit.
We are moderately optimistic.
So let's talk a little bit about rules real quick. One of the big rule mechanics that sometimes creates imbalance in Rifts is mecha damage, which for Julie, it's like, like you shoot a normal gun, you hit and you do damage, right? But like you have like a phaser on like top setting and you just disintegrate stuff. That would be like mecha damage if you damage that category.
So a 38 versus a nuke.
Almost.
Well, in Rifts, what you had was a situation where, yes, you had the 38 pistol or the spear or any normal weapon, right? And against normal people, you'd fight and you could stab or shoot someone, it would hurt. But then you ended up with this idea of these robot suits and these giant monsters and stuff like that, who were mega damage creatures or MDC capacity battle armor, stuff like that, and normal weapons couldn't hurt them. But the idea was that all these weapon manufacturers. The thing is, the reason I call Rifts a post-apocalyptic setting is that there was an apocalypse. There was, of course, the Dark Ages and the post-apocalyptic, everyone desperately trying to survive. This is well after that. Civilizations are starting to rebuild. There's giant cities now. There's like full-on cyberpunk level development in some of these areas, but there's also vast Mad Max wilderness in between all these places. But old manufacturing capabilities and technologies have been found, plus there's stuff coming in through the Rifts that upgrades things as well. So you end up with all these weapons that are capable of just blasting holes in tank armor or blasting holes in these giant edifices. Now, it got a little crazy, quite frankly, for some people in the original Rift setting. And it's gonzo, right? It's fun. Rift players love it. Other people look at it a little askance and go, I have a pistol that's about the size of a .45 caliber handgun, and yet I could shoot through 5 schools with this. I don't understand. Or I have this special spear and I could punch through an M1 Abrams tank with it. That's a little crazy, isn't it? And for classic Rift Slayers, that's a lot of fun. We had, you're right, that was a big one. That was a big challenge. And the thing is, there is a core set of rules, there's a core rule paradigm in Savage Worlds that easily and immediately suggested itself. The idea, of course, is that you could not take a 45 caliber pistol and shoot through a Patton tank with it, right? But you would take a rocket launcher to attack a tank with, well, something that was designed to be able to penetrate that armor and do lots of damage. And this is the concept of heavy weapons and heavy armor. So a 45 caliber pistol in Savage Worlds does not do heavy damage, so it could not possibly penetrate a device or a vehicle or something that has what's called heavy armor. Heavy armor requires heavy damage to hurt it. If it has the heavy damage tag, then you just roll damage normally and you go against its armor and blah, blah, blah. And that's really it. Now, with that in mind, we had what we thought was an easy solution. It's what pretty much everybody expected, but we didn't take the easy road there. We went round and round and round on this thing to be absolutely sure that was, in fact, the right way to represent this. And while at the end of the day, we did decide that, it was not a quick or easy decision. It was one that we did a lot of play testing and a lot of running numbers and a lot of other stuff to say, is this ultimately going to feel Rifts-ish? And at the same time, because we chose that, we decided that it was no longer necessary for every weapon to be capable of shooting through 5 schools. And we decided that it was no longer necessary for every suit of armor to be the equivalent of an M1 Bradley armored personnel carrier. So not every suit of armor is mega damage capacity, and not every weapon is doing mega damage. Most of the laser weapons now are just doing cool laser weapon damage. They're still cool weapons, and they'll be able to hurt most targets, but a standard laser gun will not hurt a glitter boy. It will not hurt a combat cyborg. But there are plenty of weapons that a group can get a hold of that will. They can get a hold of the laser equivalent of a rocket launcher or a heavy weapon. And we also made the decision that all the melee weapons should do mega damage, because Savage Worlds is a lot of fun for melee combat, and we thought we should bring that out. We should make melee combat exciting and over the top and gonzo. So all the vibro swords and impact mauls and all these other cool hand-to-hand weapons, they all do mega damage. So if you got a laser gun and you're shooting at the UAR-1 Force and it's not hurting it, you then draw out your vibro sword and you run up and you go whack on it with your sword. So that great image, that great 40K image, the guy, with his sword is like, drive the tank closer. I want to hit it with my sword. That's actually totally Rifts now, right? That's a totally Rifts thing to do, is to run up on something with a sword, or chain swords, right? We love chain swords.
I'm always a fan of a good mace.
So yeah, pull out a mega damage using mace and whack the crap out of it. So the other thing that
and in gaming too, not just kidding.
and the other thing that is really cool is that, yes, the mega damage weapons are they're doing a lot of dice, but they don't do more damage to you if you're not wearing MDC armor, right? They just, it's rolling the same dice of damage against you, who's in your huntsman armor, as it's rolling against the glitter boy. It's just, it can hurt the glitter boy, whereas the typical dead boy laser rifle can't hurt the glitter boy. That's when the dead boys decide to start throwing grenades at it or pull out, like I said, a heavy weapon. So it all ends up balancing out. And magic, by the way, is another equalizer, because the mind melter can put mega damage on his mind bolts, and the leyline walker can put mega damage on his fire spell, and they can also hurt stuff that normally can't be hurt. So it's all in there. It's just, once again, we balanced it a little bit.
Well, that's a good way of doing it, because the mega damage and the normal risks equals up to a lot of, I forgot how the multiplier of standard damage, so it's getting crazy.
Times 100.
Yeah.
So if you did 5 points of damage, with a mega damage weapon against a person, that person took 500 points of damage and was a greasy spot. So unless they were wearing MDC armor, which of course that became the escalation point, is that everything had to be MDC and everything had to do mega damage.
It's an arms race.
And Shane asked me the question. He said, "This is Savage World, so do we still want to have a guy with a spear jump out of a tree and still be able to scare the crap out of the guy who's sitting next to the fire, who's not in his glitter boy?" And I said, "Yes, I think we do." So that's what we went with, and that's the paradigm we went with. And I think it was Ross that coined the phrase, walks like a tank, it talks like a tank, it's a tank. And, so that's our decision point on what should be versus what isn't MDC.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. And now, artwork on Rifts has always been really great. What can we expect artwork-wise in Savage Rifts?
Well, see, Kevin was really awesome to his artists. And at a time when artists were being frequently taken advantage of, Kevin didn't do that because he's an artist himself. So Kevin left all the rights with his artists. And that's awesome. Again, good on them. But what it meant is that we were going to have to recommission all of those guys or pay them again to use that art. So we were looking at, okay, so let's look at our budget and let's see what we can do. And Pinnacle Entertainment is famous for doing fantastic art for their products. So if we were going to invest the money, we decided, why not add to the fantastic library of existing Rifts art by doing new art? So that's the direction we chose to go, is to do all new art for covers and interiors for the Savage Rifts line, to update, to add to that incredible library, just put more cool art out there for Rifts fans. And that's what we've done. So you're going to see some absolutely stunning pieces that are both for the covers and for the interiors. In fact, this has been a big part of what my life has been the last few weeks, is going through and making sure all the art's coming in. And Aaron Acevedo and Alita Saxon are two key people at Pinnacle doing a lot of the art, management and pushing things along. And the stable of artists they have, they're working on stuff. It's kind of breathtaking. I'm really thrilled to be working with the level of quality that we've got. And again, Kevin's an artist, so his interest is very heavy in making sure that the art is good and that it was reflective of what he expects to see. So there's been a lot of back and forth. There's been some pieces that had to be redone because Kevin had said, this is what my fans are going to expect us to look like, and he was right. So we were working hard to make sure that it's right, that when fans look at this, they go, that's a really cool new piece of art, but I know who that is, and that makes sense. I understand what I'm looking at. And that's been exciting. We had this really interesting thing at Gen Con last year where Shane, we were talking about the cover, and we had some really cool pieces, but they were very awesome pieces that have sort of some classic approaches, things like the group of three heroes against all the villains and kind of stuff like that. And that's a great piece. I'm really thrilled that we're going to share it. But Shane, he challenged us, and he had me, Ross Watson, and Aaron Acevedo. Again, Ross, my partner, he's sort of project development, helping me with this, and Aaron Acevedo is the art director for Pinnacle. And the four of us walked around the floor with the express mission of looking at Artist Alley and books and things like that, and what we want to do is we want that one image, that one thing that is going to say something powerful and important and special and be a standout image that people will be talking about long after the book is released. And what he was going for is something similar to the original Deadlands cover. And I don't mean Deadlands Reloaded. I mean the original Deadlands cover, that Brahm piece of that undead gunslinger on the front. Mm-hmm. That's award-winning, famous piece of art. We wanted something that evoked that level of just impressive. And the cover piece we have with the Player's Guide, I think, gets there. I'm really excited about it. Really, really excited about it. I'm not going to say because it's a surprise, but I think it's going to be in the same category, certainly in the same ballpark as that original piece in terms of what it says and how it says it. So you're going to see some really cool stuff there. But like I said, the art images have just been fantastic, and I get thrilled every time a new piece comes in for me to look at. So
good.
Well, I can't wait to see the art.
So in Rifts also, I know there's certain character classes that cause problems a little bit with the normal kind of leveling up, like say for a Juicer or a Crazy. Sometimes it's the way they're built, they're almost like, boom, you suddenly got all this ability. How do you fix that with Savage Worlds?
Well, Savage Worlds does not have character classes. It is not a class-driven game. Having said that, we did recognize that we needed to deal with these iconic characters and deal with them so that they were satisfying for the player. So I coined the phrase iconic framework. And what we've done as we've gone forward on this is each iconic framework front loads, and yes, that's the right word, front loads a set of powers and abilities that define what that character should be able to do right out the gate. When you sit down to play a juicer, the juicer is supposed to be able to do certain things. And it would be incredibly disappointing if the juicer wasn't doing all those cool things. Same thing for the mind melter, same thing for the combat cyborg. The glitter boy is no glitter boy if he doesn't have that oh my god gun and that oh my god suit of armor right off the bat. So conceptually relying on superpowers, the superpowers companion, which also takes the approach of I build a base, novice level character, but then I put all these superpowers on top of this thing, and therefore they're front loaded. Using that same philosophy, that's how we did things with these characters, but they still have plenty of room to grow. So they have their foundational abilities. The juicer's a super soldier who's got all these cool abilities, and we actually did something different with the juicer dealing with his death arc, which we can talk about if you want. But he's got all these abilities, and then he, like many of the other iconics, there's a new set of edges called iconic edges. And these iconic edges are specific to one or a limited number of iconic frameworks, and they further expand on what that iconic framework can do, so that there's still some cool level up abilities, because Savage Worlds does do level ups based on every 5 experience points you get a new thing, you get to add something. So we went that route, and we said, one of the things you could take would be a new iconic edge that further develops something specific to your iconic framework, as well as you could take just a normal edge of, combat edge or power edge or something like that, or take some new skills or something. So it becomes another option that you can use to improve what the character does based on which iconic framework you chose to play.
Yeah, with Juicer, you talked about Death Arc, because with Juicers and Crazies, Juicers live fast, die young kind of philosophy, and
Right.
And Crazies, like their namesake, get a little crazy from their abilities.
And they go steadily more insane, and we definitely incorporated that into what they could do. So Crazies, we played with the Berserk mechanics a little bit, and that's going to be really exciting when you guys get a chance to see more how they do things. But over time, they do take on more madness, but they can also develop abilities in which they can kind of ride that madness and use it to their advantage, which is kind of what a crazy should be. With Juicers, we took their idea of that they were going to die in some period within 5 years of being juiced, and we said, let's actually do something more with that. It was definitely was Ross who pushed me on that at the very beginning, and he and I went round and round. Then we got a bunch of other people involved, including John Wick. He was part of one of our early design sessions, and he suggested that we definitely, it wasn't worth anything. It didn't have any meaning unless it had a game meaning. So now juicers have something called burn, and it's just a number, right? The typical juicer starts at 8 burn, and they start with a burn die of D10. So rather than it being a set point on some calendar, this is the marker that says at what point a juicer's life force is running away. So at the beginning of every session, you roll the burn die, which, as I said, is a D10. If you roll equal to or greater than the juicer's current burn, the
is
juicer
this related to Bernie Sanders? I'm teasing.
No. We were saying things like feel the burn well before that. But if you roll equal to or greater than the current burn level, you have to spend a point of burn permanently, or you die at the end of that session. And so the die will eventually get that number, and you're going to have to spend the burn to keep surviving. And then, of course, the more burn you spend, the faster that's going to happen. So there's that ticking clock that you can see on the character sheet every session you play, which makes it a much more real thing. But you can also spend burn as a resource that you can then do cool superhuman things with. I mean, you already can do superhuman things anyway, but when you really want an extra superhuman, you can spend a point of burn and add your burn die to a die roll or a damage roll or anything. So you could add a D10 to something you're doing. If you really want to go berserk for this one special kill, spend 3 burn, add 3 D10 to the damage that you just rolled. I mean, that's the kind of insane things you could do, but you cannot get burn back. There's no known way to get your burn back. So you're just going out that faster. So the point is, the juicer character is destined to die far sooner than most characters within a campaign, which we thought was important because that's really the definitive part of who the juicer is. But the player is in a great deal of control over how and when they die and what they do with that death. And we think that is an incredibly important innovation for the juicer character. And again, Kevin was just absolutely thrilled with that when he heard about it. And the players who've had a chance to play with juicers in the games, they've been really excited to play with that.
I think it's cool. And I predict in one-shot convention campaigns, You're going to have a lot of iconic juicer deaths.
Yeah, but not as often as you think. It's been kind of interesting. Now, part of that is I'm kind of evil because the first thing I'll do when I hand out these characters to people at the convention, I'm like, this is your character. You get to keep this character. You get to name this character. And if the character survives, the next time I run a Savage Rifts game at any convention, or if you ever show up at my table, you may bring this character and continue playing it. So I dangle that ongoing existence, that living campaign kind of idea, right? So that because I want the choice to die to be meaningful. So players get to keep these. And some people have. I've got a guy who played a juicer, that was supposed to die in one session. He kept him and he brought him back to the table because he started showing up at our game nights. He did eventually die, but there was a thing, right? He kept him for a while. So, but yes, for convention play, I'll set the burn die at like 6, and I'll go ahead and put in what's called last call, which means their burn die becomes a D12. So yeah, they usually blow through those pretty hard.
So once you kill your juicer character, do you have like a backup one to start playing after that, or are you just out of the game?
No. People, you just bring a new character in. Yeah,
yep.
I mean, now there's a way for juicers, by the way, if they get near the end, they can go through what's called detox, which still is likely to kill them, but they might survive. And if they survive, then they've got this empty shell of a character that they've got to like rebuild into something else. But it's a very interesting role play challenge. It could be a very interesting story challenge over a long-term campaign. Most juicers are just going to die in a blaze of glory, which, by the way, there's a blaze of glory setting rule, added to Rifts now, and it will probably become a core Savage Worlds option for game, which is basically a character is facing a death blow. And instead of rolling on the incapacitation chart, you just decide, nope, I'm going out in a blaze of glory. And at which point it is fully narrative, and you work out with the GM how you die and what you accomplish with your death.
Awesome.
So, yeah, like I said, we're trying to add some new narrative stuff like that. I've had a glitter boy set off his nuclear engine to destroy a UAR-1 enforcer. That was one of the more glorious blaze of glories I've seen. So
that is cool.
I like that mechanism. It's a lot better than I rolled a fumble and fell or something.
That was one thing that I'm really thrilled with. And originally it was designed for the juicers, but Shane and others said, you know what, that's too cool. Let's make it something for everybody. And so now there's the option to make death meaningful in the game every single time. Every time a hero dies, they can have a meaningful death.
That's what you want in the story, unless it's Walking Dead. And I joked about the juicer thing. Most people I know who game, even though they might even not be able to admit it, they're very protective of any character they play.
Yeah.
So you'll still have a lot of people play juicers and not want to die for sure. But I think that's a fantastic story potential.
Well, you should probably choose someone other than a juicer.
Yeah, you go in knowing what you're going for. So.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's possible to play a juicer over the long haul. Have fun with that. Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Do you have mental stability in there because I know the original role-playing game you could roll for random, mental.
Well, we didn't go into the same place that the original Rifts did, but yeah, there is a system in there for and specifically for crazies. Dealing with becoming more and more insane. There's a hindrance system in Savage Worlds, and they just acquire more basically mental oriented and emotional stability oriented hindrances over time. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of how we handle that. There's a core fear system, a fear check system as well that can handle certain things. And for example, you can acquire phobias. So I mean that's all embedded in the core rules anyway. And then for crazies, like I said, basically every rank, right? So every 20 experience points, you get a new rank. You start as novice, and then 20 experience points, which is 4 level ups, you become seasoned, and then another 4 level ups. At 40, you become veteran. So every time you hit a new rank, as a crazy, you have to take on a new crazy thing. Mm-hmm. And there is a random chart for it, which means you can get multiple delusions, multiple phobias. You can develop, the habit of monologuing, so that every time you draw a clubs card for initiative, you have to spend the round doing nothing but just monologuing to the enemy or something like that. So there's all kinds of really bizarre things that the crazy can end up being even more crazy.
So is there anything else about Savage Rifts you'd like to mention?
Just that I'm very excited about this. I'm looking forward to getting it out into the wild and seeing how much fun people are going to have with it. As I told Kevin when I first proposed to him that we should do this, I think it's a chance for us to bring this setting to a whole new audience of people and a whole new generations of players for whom they either they've never heard of it or they heard of it but they never got to play it, or or whatever. And there's so many Savage Worlds fans out there. So you're right off the bat, that's going to be huge. But then there's all these other people I think are going to come back to Rifts as a setting because they're going to be intrigued by, trying it through this new set of mechanics. Plus, the existing Rifts fans who just are going to be excited because there's just new material and new things to play with. So I'm extremely excited. I'm very grateful to the team of people that I'm working with. It's amazing. Being able to be a part of Pinnacle Entertainment has been a dream come true for me. And I mean that quite literally. This is one of the things I really wanted. Shane is a dear, dear friend, and being a chance to work this closely with him and with Jody and Clint Black and with the rest of the Pinnacle team has just, it's been a thrill. They're amazing people to be working with. So, it's exciting. You just keep your hats on, guys, because this is going to be, I think it is going to be big. It's certainly gonzo. I mean, this is crazy over the top stuff, right? Rifts fans are going to be excited. Savage Worlds fans, I'll just tell you a little anecdote. Shane is not a power gamer, right? He likes the more intimate, I'm just a person. I may have some cool abilities, but, I'm a guy who's, in over my head and dealing with strange horrors and Weird West or all these other kind of cool things, and so he looks at the power stuff and he's like, well, I know people enjoy that, but it's not really my thing. And he's always been, he's very rightfully kept us, reined in. It's like, are we going too far here? Have we done too much here? Is this too complicated? And it's been invaluable. But he hadn't played a Glitter Boy. He sat down and played a few various, let's try out this new scenario or let's play around a little bit. So he was here for Genghis Khan this year, and Ross was running a play test of an adventure he wanted to eventually write up. And Shane said, you know what? Everybody keeps talking about it. I got to see. So go ahead. I'll play the Glitter Boy. So the Glitter Boy has the boom gun, which is, and I went out of my way to do this on purpose. It is the single most powerful, one-man fired weapon in the game. There's nothing that's ever been published for Savage Worlds that I'm aware of that does anywhere near this damage as just there's a person carrying a gun and they shoot it and it does this much damage. So it does 4d12 plus 6. I mean, you look at a handgun does 2d6 damage, right? This is 4d12 plus 6. Armor piercing 25. Medium burst template, so it's area effect, and it's mega damage, of course. So I mean, the thing has to like sink in pylons and like toe claws and activate a jet engine on its back. So he gets a chance finally to set up and fire this thing at a whole bunch of enemies during this battle this first battle we're in, and he rolls incredible crazy damage, and everything is just obliterated. And we're all kind of, especially because I know Shane's on a power gamer, right? I know this is not his thing, so I'm kind of looking at him and he's like, okay, yeah, that was fun. So I was like, yes, Shane, because it was cool for him to get a chance to see that that's for the Savage Rifts players, that's going to be a lot of fun. This is just absolutely the most over the top crazy expression of the rules. People are going to be doing big crazy stuff, blowing tops off of mountains and just ridiculous stuff, and that's Rifts. So there's an ongoing joke we've had internally is because Rifts, like anytime there's completely nuts or some character's doing something that is patently insane and impossible, it's like because Rifts. So, that was a cool moment, right? So to see him have a chance to have some fun with that. So that's what we're looking forward to sharing with everybody is this crazy beyond gonzo expression of Savage Worlds, which is just one of many, right? There's so many other amazing things. I mean, Weird Wars 1 just came out. Very excited about that. Before that was the new version of Rippers. We've got Flash Gordon in development. God, I can't wait to see that. That's just going to be so cool, so cool. That's taking actual Flash Gordon from the movies on.
Yeah.
That's going to be a fun thing too. So it's the flexibility of Savage Worlds is just incredible for all these different types of games, and it's going to be fun to have all of these different expressions out there for people to play with. So
Savage Worlds always has a lot of really exciting settings. So it'll be Rifts will be a great mix to that. Thanks so much for joining us. You've had a long history of role-playing games. I love the Fantasy Role-Playing Gamers Bible, and Star Wars D6 was like the first game I ever played. So
Yeah, we're actually in a game. We're in a campaign of that right now. We have a regular Monday night gaming crew, and I got a guy who's running that every other week, and it's been a wow. Talk about a callback. Although that wild die thing, man. Oh, every time you roll a 1 on that thing, you're like, no. But anyway, so yeah. Anytime you guys, I enjoyed it. Anytime you guys want to talk about anything to do with the gaming hobby or industry, pretty deeply involved. There's the Sean's Pick of the Day site. I'm very involved in promoting other people's products and stuff like that. So anytime you have a question, let me know.
Okay,
That's great. Thank you. We had so much fun talking to you. Thank you again.
Thank you, guys.
Hi, my name is David Peterson. I'm the creator of the Dothraki language for HBO's Game of Thrones and the alien language and culture consultant for Sci-Fi's Defiance, and you're listening to GenreTainment.
Well, thanks to Sean for taking the time to chat with us.
And good luck to Sean and the Savage Rifts team with their Kickstarter.
But before we go, we do want to remind you that you can always keep track of us by subscribing to us on iTunes or Stitcher, or by following our GenreTainment Facebook page, Marx's Twitter account, which is @Mr. Marx, our website at GenreTainment.com, or you can follow all of the shows at SciFiPulseRadio.com.
So that's it for today's GenreTainment. We'll be back soon with all new guests from our favorite films, TV shows, novels, and web series.
GenreTainment is a production of Alien Jungle Bug Productions.
Until next time.
Bad monkey.